Good Tuesday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. A little bit later in the show, we'll be joined by Matt Dery of the Dery Brothers Tribecast to talk some Indians, but we're, of course, going to talk plenty of Browns football as the Browns rebuild the roster through free agency and the draft. Another defensive lineman signing today. We'll get to that in a little bit. Let's welcome in Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com, Dan Labbe. And Dan has a shadow with him from Beechwood High School. Say hello to Noah Weiskopf. Noah, hello, and you can listen to us in the Zoom room and see what's going on. So, Dan, when you look at what the Browns have done, you wrote an interesting article, Plain Dealer. What has each of the draft picks taught us? Let's go through a couple of those and what you arrived at.
Yeah, well, the first one is Greg Newsom, and that's someone that I kind of had been beating the drum for a while. And a big reason is because I felt like in that cornerback room, they had left a hole there, right? Greedy Williams is supposed to be back, but, you can't just count on Greedy Williams. So I think it just showed us for the second straight year that the Browns showed their hand a little bit. They kind of showed what they wanted to value early in the draft with the cornerback position. So he's a guy that, when I look at how they acquired him, how they sort of approached that second cornerback, they really believed that was something that they could get in the draft, and they addressed that early on at number 26 overall.
You look at the second-round pick, a guy I was surprised was there in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. What do you think that one taught us?
I think there's a number of ways we could go here, but the thing that really stood out to me was this was sort of a test of sorts for Andrew Berry, right? John Dorsey was so good at kind of identifying in the draft where he would need to move up to get a guy, what he would need to give up to get that guy. And, we saw him do it when Brett Veach and Andy Reid said, go get us Patrick Mahomes. John Dorsey kind of engineered that trade up to number 10. Well, I don't know if Andrew Berry picked it up from John Dorsey or if he's just picked it up over the years of learning the ropes of the GM job. But his kind of masterminding there to move from number 59 to 52 to understand who he needed to get in front of as JOK was falling down the board, what exactly he wanted to give up. I know Paul DePodesta was very happy that they didn't actually give up any picks they had. They just moved picks around. They didn't give any of them up. They still had the same number of picks at the time. I think the way that Berry handled that and what he gave up to get up there, it showed us something about him wanting to be aggressive and knowing when and how to be aggressive.
And the last one that we'll talk about in the picks here, Demetric Felton, a guy from UCLA that really versatile.
Yeah, and I liken this to a guy in the same round, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Last year they took a guy who was very traits heavy. You didn't know what he was going to be, and you could make the case that they already won with that pick from last year based on what he did alone in 2020. And I still think there's a lot of upside there. So with Felton, you get a guy that they're going to start off at running back, but he can play in the slot. He can play receiver. You go on Twitter and you'll see clips of him running routes at the Senior Bowl and running routes at UCLA. And it's like, whoa, this guy can play a little bit of receiver. So I like that they're kind of just taking a big swing on this guy. If he turns into like a Duke Johnson type of back, that's great. If it ends up being like another Matthew Days and he's out of the league in 2 or 3 years, that's not ideal, but it was a 6th-round pick. And I think that's what you should be doing with 6th and 7th-round picks is taking big swings like that.
The other thing that when I looked at it, and especially with Owusu-Koramoah, Andrew Berry knows what type of player he wants, what type of player fits into these systems, and that's half the battle. He's kind of identified these guys are Browns football players, and that's the beginning of having long-term success with a franchise.
Yeah, exactly. We talk about it all the time with the Ravens and the Steelers, right, and the Browns on division. And the Ravens don't always have great drafts. The Steelers don't always have great drafts. But what they're able to do is identify players to bring in, put in their system, and develop. And I think Owusu-Koramoah and Tony Fields kind of tell us this is what the Browns like at linebacker. We've talked so much about, well, maybe they don't value the linebacker position. Maybe it's not that as much as maybe they just don't value the traditional linebacker position. They want guys who can play a little safety, who can get up in the box and make some plays and support in the run game, but guys that are versatile and can really cause mismatch problems for the offense. So, they're really scheming into Joe Woods' defense here, but I don't think it's just Joe Woods' defense. I think this is the vision that this front office has for what a modern day defense should look like.
And you also wrote another article about that, Joe Woods now has the ability to kind of flip the script and create defensive mismatches. We always talk about, the offense of NFL is about mismatches. Take me through what you think Joe Woods can do defensively that would create some mismatches.
Well, I mean, it just starts up front, right? When you have Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett and Takk McKinley and all these guys that can play just across that front four. I'm always reminded that Myles Garrett's first career sack, he was lined up in 3 technique on the inside against the Jets. And that's how he got his first sack on his very first play from scrimmage. So Myles always has that freedom to line up wherever he wants. And that's only going to increase, I think, with the rest of these guys. But then, Owusu-Koramoah is an interesting guy. Is he going to start? I don't know. But this is a guy you can have on the field. Let's say he's on the field for 50% of the defensive snaps this year. He can make an impact because Joe Woods can do so many different things. He can rush him off the edge. He can drop him into coverage. And as a quarterback, you've got to come to the line. You've got to identify the mic. You've got to figure out what guys are doing pre-snap and post-snap. And with all the length and the speed that they have, it's going to be difficult for these offenses to really function sometimes.
Think about the other thing that, you have guys that play multiple positions. John Johnson has played a Mike linebacker in some instances with the LA Rams. You've mentioned Owusu-Koramoah has played safety. You could, in theory, have guys playing different positions on 2 separate plays when they're on the field together. So it's going to be a lot to for an offense.
And the other thing, too, is, so often we talk about linebackers, like, okay, which linebacker is coming on this blitz? But let's say you're out there and you've got John Johnson, Ronnie Harrison, Grant Delpit all lined up at safety. Maybe you've got JOK out there at linebacker. That quarterback's going to have to figure out, if the Browns are blitzing, who's coming. Because any of those safeties could come and get to the quarterback. Any of those linebackers can do the same thing. Or they could just drop everybody into coverage and rush 4. I think they're going to have their ability to do that, which, of course, Joe Woods watched when he was the DB coach back at San Francisco, working under Robert Saleh. San Francisco was so good at creating pressure with 4. There's just so many different things that this defense can do. And when you go through this schedule and look at the different types of offenses and different types of quarterbacks they're going to have to face, I really do think it's going to be different week to week.
The other thing is they've, from my perspective, do you think they've increased the athleticism and the speed? Because you need that when you're going against Lamar Jackson, when you're going against Patrick Mahomes, when you're going against, Josh Allen. Those guys, you better be able to run.
Yeah, I think there's probably like 3 plays that probably have to have stuck in the Browns' minds. And one of them is not like those other quarterbacks, and that's Chad Henne's big run, right? But also, you had Lamar Jackson coming out of the tunnel and throwing that long touchdown to Hollywood Brown. You had Trace McSorley completing a duck for a big 3rd down conversion. Lamar Jackson torched him in week 1, obviously. Yeah, they're going to have speed all over the place. You've got to play Lamar Jackson twice a year, regardless. And you have to, at least in some part, build your defense like that. I always thought Myles Garrett was a very important piece to trying to stop Lamar Jackson because he's such a freak of an athlete. But now you've got even more guys like that. And even at corner, now you've got Denzel Ward and Greg Newsom. And I've got to imagine that if those 2 end up being your starters, obviously Ward will be, but if Newsom is the other starter, you've probably got 2 of the faster corners in the league on the outside.
Do you think it's by design? Is that what you think the grand plan was? Let's get more athletic, especially on the back half of that. It looks like that's what the grand plan was. Do you agree?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to not just Lamar Jackson, but just think about the quarterbacks you're going to have to beat if you want to get to the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. This team is going to have to play Justin Herbert this year. He can move around a little bit. They're going to have to play Kyler Murray this year. There are very few quarterbacks left in the NFL that are just statues and that just stand in the pocket. Almost every quarterback, even a guy like Joe Burrow, right? Joe Burrow can kill you with his legs. He's not a super athlete, but he can still kill you with his legs if you don't keep him in check. So just having speed across the board and making sure that these running quarterbacks and guys who can make plays with their legs, like you're not going to shut down Patrick Mahomes, but you can make life a lot harder on Patrick Mahomes if you have speed and guys that can chase him around.
Dan Labbe and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we continue to talk Browns defensive line. They've added a couple in the last couple of days. We'll also look at some of the top-ranked undrafted free agent signings, and the Browns have one of them. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. We continue to talk Browns football with Browns beat reporter Dan Labbe. And Dan, a signing of another defensive tackle for the Browns, Damian Square, a veteran with the Chargers, signed earlier today. Again, what do you know about him? Is this just a depth kind of piece, you think?
I think so. And this is a good veteran guy, played for the Chargers for the most part. I started 16 games the last 4 years, so he's durable, reliable. You kind of know what he is. I don't know if this is a guy that's going to play a huge role for this team once the season starts, but it's clear that they want to throw more bodies at that defensive tackle position. And they really want to kind of be able to rotate guys through there once the season gets going.
Yeah, the other thing is he played, I think it was 19 or 21% of the special team snaps for the Chargers. So that's another thing to keep in mind, a big guy that can run down on special teams as well. Yesterday, they signed another defensive tackle. This one, a little bit higher upside probably, Malik Mcdowell. Now, that was a guy that was a second-round pick, had an injury, ATV injury, and never really got on the field, then had some legal troubles. But at Michigan State, it was a pretty good defensive lineman.
Yeah, and follow the thread here. 5-star recruits. That's what we're going to be talking about with a lot of these guys. And I understand guys that make it to the NFL probably are going to be pretty highly rated recruits. Not all of them, but most of them. But still, a lot of 5-star recruits the Browns are taking advantage of. And that's what Malik Mcdowell is. This is a good test of the Browns' tough, smart, and accountable mantra. They preached that to us all weekend. They preached that to us for a year. And then they go out and they sign Malik Mcdowell. And there's risk here. Had the ATV accident, has never played in an NFL game, and then had all kinds of legal trouble. Got sentenced to 11 months in prison and had to write some essays for a judge. So we'll see that this was a very interesting signing. One that they tried to sneak a little bit by us with the undrafted free agents, but everybody caught up pretty quickly. This is going to be a good test, I think, for the culture of the team as they take a chance on him.
Well, and the flip side of it is Andrew Berry and the front office have earned, the trust a little bit just with what they've done. So if they say they've vetted him, we'll take their word for it. My question, and this is kind of the bigger picture question. So you've signed Square, you've signed McDowell. Does that preclude signing Sheldon Richardson, do you think, or do you think that's still on the table?
I thought it was interesting. Kevin Stefanski did an interview on the radio today, and just really before I came on here, and he seemed to leave the door open for Sheldon Richardson. I think it's worth watching. If Sheldon lands a job, obviously that's fine. It is what it is. But if this thing continues to drag on, and I don't know that either of the guys they've added, and even if you want to get into the undrafted free agents, which I know we're going to do, I don't know that anyone necessarily precludes Sheldon Richardson being able to come back and get on the field. But obviously that cost is going to be a lot less than what Sheldon Richardson would like it to be. So, unless he gets a job anytime soon, this might kind of be hanging out there for a little while.
Well, the only thing that I've seen him attached to the Cowboys, and they said he'd be a fit, but that's another team they got their own salary cap issues that are going to preclude them from making him a big money contract that he's going to want.
Yeah, and it could come down to one of those things where, if this thing really does drag on into the summer, somebody gets hurt somewhere, and then Sheldon gets an opportunity to get a job, something like that. this could be another one of those weird years like last year where there's some free agents that kind of hang out there for a little while because we don't have in-person off-season programs right now. Training camp is going to start at the end of July and should look normal. And that's maybe when we start seeing some of these free agents that have been out there a little while get snapped up. I don't know if Richardson will be out there that long, but I think there is a world where it does play out like that a little bit.
Yeah, and the other thing is, keep in mind, all things being equal, Richardson is he knows the coaching staff. He knows this is going to be a very good football team. The only reason for him not to re-sign here is if someone can give him more money. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I, he's a popular guy in the locker room, really beloved guy in that locker room. So he knows a lot of the players, especially in that defensive line room, but really just across the team, just all gravitated to him in there. And yeah, he knows the scheme, he knows the coaching staff. He's been around it. You can plug and play him. If he's not here in the offseason, if he's not here at the start of training camp, whatever, there's no concern there. You can put Sheldon Richardson out there and play him. But you know what? I can't blame Sheldon either if he thinks he can make $8 or $9 million somewhere. And he's starting to get a little bit older if he wants to maybe maximize his earning power moving forward here.
Yeah, without question. Now, let's move in and look at the best undrafted free agent signings. And top one was Ardarius Washington, safety from TCU. That was by the Ravens. Number 2 on this list is Marvin Wilson, defensive tackle for the Cleveland Browns. And this is a guy they wanted. Again, this according to Pro Football Focus. But Wilson is a guy they aggressively went after as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, gave him a lot of money for an undrafted free agent, so much so that his agent even tweeted afterwards that they were happy that he didn't get drafted, that he got to go through that undrafted process and get the money that he got out of that. This is no surprise that Andrew Berry is going to play around in this undrafted free agent market and try to find value like this. Sashi Brown, when he was here with Andrew Berry, when they were together, undrafted free agents were important. Waiver claims after the cut down to 53 were important. You can really find some value here, and I'm really intrigued by this guy. I don't know how much stock we should put in what he did in 2020. It seems like if you go back to what he did in 2019, that's really the player that the Browns are hoping they're getting here. But this is a really intriguing pickup. I mean, this is a guy that some draft guides have projected 5th round. And so to get him as an undrafted free agent is absolutely huge.
And the other thing is, with what the Browns are paying him, they're going to give him every opportunity to prove he was that player that he was in 2019. All right, Pro Football Focus has also ranked the most improved defensive lines in the offseason. And the Browns are among the tops. They have the Patriots as the most improved, and the Browns number 2, Jets, Lions, Bills, 3, 4, and 5. But Browns number 2. And again, what's your reaction to just the improvement on that front, the front 7? We'll call it the front 4 for the Browns.
Well, look, when you already have Myles Garrett, right, and then you become the second most improved defensive line in football, that's a really good sign. And I love a lot of what they've added there. I thought the approach to the other side was interesting with Jadeveon Clowney and Tack McKinley to kind of pair them together. A guy we don't talk about a lot is Curtis Weaver over there. I don't know what he is, but I do think they view him as a developmental guy. I think that's part of the reason they didn't draft an edge rusher maybe in this class. But then on the inside, Malik Jackson is a really versatile, really good player. And if he's right off that Liz Frank injury, and it looked like he was getting there last year, he can make an impact inside and outside. Obviously Jordan Elliott got some time last year and should be able to make a jump. Andrew Billings is back. So there's so much depth on the inside now. And when we talked about a couple other bodies that they've added there too. So I think what they've done to complement Myles Garrett with kind of that 2-headed monster, kind of prove it deals on the one side, and then you let Myles loose on the other side. If you can create some pressure on the interior, it's going to be really hard for quarterbacks.
Browns beat reporter Dan Labbe and I have to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will take a look at Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah's health. There were some concerns. Browns say not a problem. And also, my crazy Uncle Colin talking about the Browns' offensive additions and defensive additions in the offseason. You'll want to hear this. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue to talk Browns football with Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, Dan Labbe. Dan, some news that the slide of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was related to a concern with his heart and his health, and the Browns downplayed it. Do you make anything out of that?
I don't really, and I don't think the Browns would have made the pick if they were concerned long-term about his health. This organization is always thinking many, many steps ahead and many years down the road. And I don't think they would invest a valuable pick like that in a player if they were really unsure about his heart condition. I know that they have said that they aren't concerned about it. They expect him to have a long career. I was curious. I mean, the only argument, the only nitpicking I could do about the pick is, obviously moving up to get him was great, but why was he there at 52? Why did the Browns pass on him at 26? And maybe now we're finding out that there was a little bit of risk involved there in taking him. But I would trust that this front office and Andrew Berry, who Kevin Stefanski reminded us all doesn't like to wing it, that they did their due diligence and they're picking a player that they think is going to have a long career. I
have two things about that. I think because there was no combine in Indianapolis where you can poke, prod, and do all that. We had heard that a number of the reports were late, the medicals. We heard that late in the process, that there were a number of medicals that teams were getting late. So I think that might have had a little bit of play into the fact. But again, I'm with you. I don't think there's any way that if they had even a remote concern that they would have traded up to pick him in the second round of the draft.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. It's not just that they picked him, it's that they got aggressive and they traded up to pick him. They did give up some assets to move up and take him at 52 instead of going a different direction at 59. So I think that tells us, it's one of those actions speak louder than words moment. That tells us what we need to know about how the Browns feel about it.
All right, so this, you know me, Colin Cowherd, I can't look away, and he often reminds me of, the crazy uncle that's liable to say anything just to get a reaction. Take a listen to what Colin said about the Browns' offseason additions.
Cleveland's already got a nice roster. They made the playoffs and they won a playoff game, but their back end was awful. They not only addressed their linebacking and secondary, they massively upgraded. That was as good a weekend as the Cleveland Browns have ever had in terms of addressing more of their issues. So you get Jadeveon Clowney, Troy Hill, John Johnson. These guys have played in the league. These are grown-ups. These are men, not boys in the NFL. Then you go get a corner, Greg Newsom, who I had going in the first round earlier than they got him, and maybe the linebacker from Notre Dame. So what you get here is a mix of veterans. You get a mix of youth. You get guys who have called plays. John Johnson for the Rams has been calling plays for a defense. You get grown-ups, kids, and you attack your one weakness. And I already know you got a good coach and can win a playoff game because I saw it last year. That is an A-plus off season. You had a weakness. You solved it with veterans and draft picks, not just kids. I don't want to hear, oh, we drafted 9. You got it. Most GMs in trades don't want 9 picks because half these guys don't pan out. So Cleveland A+.
Dan, how much do you think it pained him to say that?
I think it hurt him a lot. And also, by the way, pro move there by Colin when he saw Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah's name and maybe wasn't quite sure how to pronounce it. Just said the linebacker from Notre Dame. I think Dave, you and I have done high school football games together. Sometimes you run into some things like that. So a pro move there from Colin Cowherd. But yeah, I mean, apparently Colin is on the Browns train, or maybe he's just trying to set up some sort of hot Baker Mayfield take down the road. But I almost wonder if Browns fans should be a little nervous about this.
Yeah, I know. You hear that, and it's like, man, did he really just say that? We had to play that back twice to make sure he was complimenting the Browns. But again, it goes to show you there's very little argument with what they've done. Now they got to go out and do it on the field.
Exactly. And I think the great thing is, and I know that, a lot of coaches and GMs say things like this, but I really do believe it with this coaching staff based on everything we've learned over the last year or so. They understand that they haven't done anything yet. They've just added talent to the roster. They've added players, and they understand that, Kevin Stefanski has already turned the page on the 11-win season. In fact, he doesn't even want to talk about it. He has moved on. He's, if anything, he's framed it as a disappointment that they finished 3rd place in the division and they only won 1 playoff game. So he has turned the page to 2021 in this organization. Maybe internally they take a few victory laps, but I don't think they think they've accomplished anything yet.
Yeah, and it's refreshing to hear that out of Berea because their expectations are probably a little bit higher than most.
And they should be. I mean, listen, this team, and you play the Colin Cowherd thing, we're going to hear national people across the media landscape make what they say are bold predictions about the Browns, maybe winning the AFC, going to the Super Bowl. That should be the expectation for this football team. They have so much talent on this roster, and they've rebuilt that defense. They won 11 games last year. I don't think it's unfair to say that the expectation is to continue to take those steps forward. And, listen, you stop Chad Henne on that 3rd and long, maybe we're talking about a team that beats Buffalo in the AFC title game. So that's how close they were. And I think they understand that. So expectations should absolutely be high for this team internally and externally.
Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter. So we're going to take a timeout. But before we do, we're going to meet Noah Weiskopf, who is Dan's shadow from Beechwood High School. Noah has been shadowing Dan and is in the call with us. Noah, let's talk a little bit about Browns. You a Browns fan? Do you like what they did in the draft?
Big Browns fan. And yeah, I do. I like everything they did in the draft. Thought that the late round, they took the high risk or low risk, high reward, And in the beginning with Greg Newsom, definitely a need, and just adding depth everywhere and speed everywhere to help stop all the other quarterbacks, like we were saying earlier in the show. So yeah, I love what they did in the offseason. And so far, pretty much perfect offseason for Andrew Berry.
Noah Weiskopf from Beechwood High School, shadowing Dan. Before we let you go, how excited are you for football season? You ready to see that team get out there and see what they can do on the field?
Can't wait. Ever since the Kansas City loss last time, I was already ready for the first week. So yeah, I'm so excited.
Noah Weiskopf, great job. Noah, again, shadowing Dan from Beechwood High School. Noah, we appreciate it. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. So one more segment on the Browns. We will be right back here on Sports for CLE. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue to talk Browns football with Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer, Dan Labbe. Dan, take a listen to this. First take, Max Kellerman on the best landing spot for the Packers' Aaron Rodgers, who wants out of Green Bay.
Could you imagine Aaron Rodgers on that team? Baker Mayfield is a nice quarterback. But the Cleveland Browns have the #1 rated offensive line, blocking for the passer, protecting the quarterback, and blocking for the run. Both. That almost never happens. They have the best offensive line in the game. Odell Beckham Jr. is coming back.
I actually like this thought experiment. It's a lot of fun to picture him with all these weapons.
Oh, my God.
This is good, Max. This is good. And they have a good defense. You're right. I like it. I'm into it.
They have 2 all-world running backs, a great offensive line, great receivers everywhere you look. Odell coming back with a chip on his shoulder and a defense. Aaron Rodgers on the Browns right now, in my view, makes them Super Bowl favorite over the Bucs and the Chiefs. Right. I would pick them #1.
All right, let's bring Dan Labbe back in, Dan. You didn't know quite what you were coming into today, did you? I can't argue with what he said, but I don't think there's any way just your reaction to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because I think he's right. I think if the Browns went out and acquired Aaron Rodgers, he's probably right. They would become the favorite to win the Super Bowl, but I just don't know that it's something first of all, I don't know that it's even realistic. And secondly, they put so much into Baker Mayfield and they've been so patient and they've really built this thing around Baker to make him successful. And let's not pretend like the last 6 weeks of the season and 2 pretty good playoff performances from Baker didn't happen. He's got the potential, if he builds on that, to be a really good quarterback for a really long time. So I can't argue with the point that if Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback here, the Browns wouldn't be favorites. But I just don't know how much sense it makes. I hate to say that. We're talking about an MVP, a future Hall of Famer who's so much left in the tank. I hate to say that. I don't think you'd hang up the phone if the Packers called, but I think you really have to wrestle with keeping with a young quarterback or really just going completely 100% all in on like these next 2 years.
The flip side of it is Andrew Berry has done so much looking at the future in addition to the present. This would be not looking to the future hardly at all and being all in the present, which doesn't seem to be what this front office is about.
Right. I mean, they want to be good for a long time, and good can vary, right? I think over the next couple of years, they are definitely Super Bowl contenders. And then there might be a stretch like with the Seahawks, right? Where you're just a really good team. Maybe you're not quite Super Bowl level. You got to rebuild some areas and get there, but you're always good. You're always in the mix. You can always get in the tournament. And that kind of starts with your quarterback. And like I said, they put so much into Baker Mayfield, and they've been so patient for once, right? They didn't bail on the guy after 2019. Instead, they went out and they completely remade the rest of the organization around him. So you could be aggressive and go get Aaron Rodgers. And you know what? I don't think nobody would complain if the Browns won like back-to-back Super Bowls and then didn't know what they were going to do at quarterback 2 years from now. But it's just hard for me to see them really ponying up to go get Rodgers after everything they put into Baker being successful. And like you said, it's long term too. They want to think not just 2 years down the road. They want to think 6, 7, 8 years down the road.
I think it's one of the things that I've been most impressed with is they're playing chess three-dimensionally. It's now, it's here, it's there. This is what it's going to look like in 2 years. So that's one of the impressive areas. All right, let's look at this roster. Are there areas that you think they really want to upgrade? I won't call them weaknesses because it's a pretty good roster. Are there areas that need to be upgraded to get where they want to go, do you think?
I think the two areas I would look at are still the two areas we've talked about a lot this offseason, except they've really been shored up. I actually would have liked to have seen them add another corner in the draft, just add some more depth there with one of those late picks. Instead, they decided to add a second linebacker, and that's fine too. So I still think they need to go. I still think they need more depth at the cornerback position because you brought in Troy Hill to play in the slot. And if something happens, Denzel Ward is probably going to miss some games. Greg Newsom, if he's the starter, has had some durability issues. And you don't want to get into a situation where you have to keep moving Troy Hill out to the outside and then dealing with that domino effect inside. So that's one area, some depth there. And, even though they had JOK at linebacker and they bring in Anthony Walker and you're hoping Jacob Phillips makes a step, I wouldn't be opposed to a little more depth at linebacker. I think it's a little questionable behind the top guys there. You're talking about Mac Wilson, Sione Takitaki. I think you want to maybe evaluate what you have behind that starting layer of linebackers and see if you can add depth there. But that's a great conversation for this team to be having. We're not talking about front line. We're talking about adding depth.
Yeah, isn't that a different sort of conversation and one you're happy to have? So there are still some free agents out there. Well, let's run through a couple of them, just see if you think there's any chance. On the edge, you've got Melvin Ingram, a guy coming off an injury. Any chance you think that Melvin Ingram lands here, or you think that ship has sailed?
I think they're pretty set at the edge. I don't see them adding another big name. They'll probably add some pieces here and there, some smaller names to come in and be camp bodies and get opportunities. But I think they're pretty happy with what they have at the edge with Clowney and Tack, guys on the inside that can move outside. And of course, like I said, I think they kind of view Curtis Weaver as a potential developmental edge down there.
You look at cornerback, and there's still a couple of names out there, Richard Sherman, Brian Poole. Any chance you think either of them come down into the price range where they make sense for the Browns?
I mean, I would love the idea of adding Brian Poole. He's a guy that I had on my list coming into the offseason. Now, they went a different direction in the slot corner, and that's really what Poole is. He's not a guy that can play outside. He probably could in a pinch, but that's not really where you want him. But I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him in if that price were right. He's a veteran guy, but he's still pretty young. And again, we go back to, let's say you did need to move Troy Hill outside for a few games. Now you've got a really excellent inside corner. And if you're playing, 4 DBs, whatever you want to do, if you add Brian Poole into that mix, I think he's really intriguing. I don't know if Richard Sherman's a fit here. I really don't. I feel like that's something they probably would have done already, considering Joe Woods is your defensive coordinator. I feel like that would have been done already if they wanted him.
All in all, when you look at this roster, how big of an upgrade do you think there has been all off season long? From the time they lost to the Chiefs to where we sit now. And again, I realize it's got to be done on the field, but when you look at this roster, it's pretty remarkable, the transformation.
Yeah, I mean, they've completely remade this defense, and they've completely taken a defense that we all saw it, right? We all watched that defense, and Andrew Berry watched that defense. Poor Joe Woods had to watch that defense every single week and try to come up with ways to scheme it up. We knew that the defense needed to get better. And we all kind of knew that Andrew Berry was going to go out and address that this offseason after really fixing the offense the previous year. But he has taken it to the extreme. I mean, he has added playmakers all over the place. And I think what we're seeing is, Andrew Berry, right? Analytics-driven, forward-thinking GM on the cusp of what we believe modern football could maybe look like. And maybe we're getting a glimpse of that, right? Speed all over the place, versatility, guys that can force turnovers, all of that stuff kind of combined into one thing. Yeah, I asked Andrew if this was sort of his take on what a modern defense should look like. He didn't take the bait when I asked him, but I do honestly believe that this is sort of what they think a modern day NFL defense needs to look like.
Isn't it fun talking about tweaks to the roster instead of total rebuilds and needing a quarterback and changing coaches and front offices? I mean, This is what the NFL is supposed to be like.
Right. And it's so quiet, too. I mean, the Browns, even after this draft, this great draft, and, you played the clip of Colin Cowherd earlier, it's still sort of been under the radar in a lot of ways. They've just gone about their business, and they've just added the pieces they're supposed to add 2 off seasons in a row, right? It just all makes sense, everything they've done. And the best thing you can do is just nitpick. Well, should they have taken this guy in this round, or how does this guy fit exactly? There's nothing big that you're looking at, scratching your head and saying, what are they trying to do here? The vision is so clear with this team on both sides of the football right now.
Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks so very much, Dan.
All right, thank you.
All right, Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter. Time for us to step aside, and we're going to shift gears when we return. We're talking baseball. Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast. Straight ahead, talking Jake Bauers and the Indians offense. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. Indians took the first game of a 4-game series with the Royals in Kansas City yesterday. Now just 2 games behind the Royals in the American League Central. Let's bring in Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast. Matt, let's talk a little bit about Jake Bauers before we get going. Take me through what's going on with Jake Bauers here.
Do we have to? Come on, man. Come on, Dave. Listen, I'm back with the team. I'm back watching the games. In case people did not know, last week I took a little hiatus, Dave. What do you think?
I can certainly understand. You should have checked the starting lineup before you did that.
So you think so? So I did what my brother called a tribe hunger strike, where I basically said last Monday, I'm not going to watch any more games as long as he's on this team because he should be DFA'd. I sat out last week in terms of watching games live. I was following on my phone with Gamecast and the app because I need my tribe fix, but I still can't believe he's here. It's disappointing. But again, he actually had decent at-bats last week, and the team went 4-2. Then, like you mentioned, winning last night. And with 4 lefties the next 5 days, now 3 in the next 4, he's not going to play much to begin with. So probably tomorrow when they face Brady Singer, a right-hander, I'll continue the hunger strike. But for now, hey, they're winning games, so I guess it's all good.
Now, he is 4 for his last 11, but he's still hitting a $182, 182, and the concerning part is he's had almost 750 at bats, and he's a 212 hitter. So I get it. You know what? When the Columbus Clippers get underway here tonight, they're in Louisville, And if Bobby Bradley starts mashing the ball, he may be able to force his way back into the big leagues. That's kind of what you're looking for at this point.
Did you see that Clippers lineup, by the way, tonight? It's not bad. Like that's the best AAA lineup the Indians have fielded in years, Dave. And you've got guys like you mentioned, Bobby Bradley, Oscar Mercado, who had a track record for a little while in the bigs. Owen Miller, who I think if Owen Miller, who's hitting fifth tonight for Columbus, like you mentioned against Louisville, if he just starts hitting, because that's all he's done his entire minor league career, hand him a first baseman's glove, and let's see if he can play first base. Same thing goes with Nolan Jones. This first base position right now is just, it's a flat tire. I mean, it's brutal. Yu Chang is such a good kid and is probably a decent utility guy that plays once or twice a week tops. But the fact that he's going to start for the next 5 days, and you watched some of his at-bats last night, I mean, you've got to get some production from first base, and they're just not getting it.
Yeah, I agree. So the other thing that has happened is Jordan Luplow has a leg issue, so they brought up Harold Ramirez, and, liked what I saw. Take a listen to what Terry Francona said about Harold Ramirez.
He was actually with us one other trip, and I'm glad we got to know him in spring training because he's kind of the same, good energy, played all three outfield positions, showed up with a smile. He's an aggressive hitter. We know that, but he can get to a good fastball. So, we've seen him in spring training, but, like we said, he can hit a fastball. I mean, he's got bat speed. He gives you some energy too. I like the way he plays. He's a fun guy to have around.
So, Matt, it'll be interesting to see. One of the things is he's got a quick bat. You saw him getting pitched inside, and he was all over that. This lineup can use something like that. And I've come around on Luplow. Luplow is a guy that doesn't give away at bats. I do want to see more of Luplow, but Ramirez, I like what I see so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's one game, and with what we went through last year as fans trying to sort through the outfield positions, really all three of them, it was rough. And they've tried everything. We mentioned Bradley Zimmer, Mercado, this year with Ben Gamel, Jake Bauers, Josh Naylor. I think Naylor is better at first base, but, right now he's kind of going seesawing between first and right field. But Jordan Luplow has been a pleasant surprise this year against right-handed pitching. We always know he can rake against lefties. But you're right, Harold Ramirez last night looked good. We'll get another opportunity tonight and probably the rest of the week against all these lefties they're going to face. Duffy on Thursday, Miley on Friday. So let's see what he's got. Again, he's 26 and has a little experience in the bigs with the Marlins. But, Miami got rid of him. Pittsburgh got rid of him.
Mm-hmm.
Toronto got rid of him. So he's a bit of a journeyman, but really let's see what he's got. And to me, he also knows how to play center field. Ahmed Rosario is not a center fielder and occasionally takes a bad route to a ball because, quite honestly, he's never played the position before. But this offense is in need of some sort of kickstart. Maybe Harold Ramirez provides that.
Yeah, and a few years back he was the opening day cleanup hitter for the Marlins. So there's some flashes of that. You see the bat speed. That's something that you can't hide, and it's apparent when you watch the guy swing. It's like, yeah, he's got bat speed. The question is, can he recognize pitches? Is there a big old hole that we're not seeing yet? My guess is somewhere in his swing there's a hole, because otherwise he'd be playing somewhere regularly.
And Tito just said it. He can hit a fastball. So what's going to happen is these teams will accumulate a book on him, and he's not going to see any fastballs. So can he lay off some of the breaking stuff out of the zone, draw a walk, and get on base? We'll see. Last night was a good win. It didn't come without some trepidation, certainly. And boy, the Royals, David, they don't go away. They're tough. And tonight will be interesting to see what Sam Hentges does against that lineup.
Yeah, the other thing is Eddie Rosario had big home run. He's starting to hit the ball and drive the ball. Good sign. Terry Francona talked about that, and Fran Mil Reyes talked about Eddie Rosario picking him up with that 3-run homer after he had struck out in the previous at bat. Let's listen to Terry Francona.
When Eddie gets hot, he'll get real hot because, again, he's an aggressive hitter. But when he starts to see it, and he'll do some damage for us, and it'll be really welcome. I mean, like you're alluding to, a 3-run home run right there just completely changes the complexion of the game.
I was really happy the Eddie got my back right there as well. I strike out, Eddie come with that big homer. That's the key that gets you to championship and to win. When you see your friends never put their, your teammate never put their head down and just keep fighting and get the thing done like Eddie did right there. I am very positive this year, man. Like I told you guys in spring training, my first thing that I'm gonna keep in mind is to never stop what I'm doing when I'm hot. You know what I'm saying?
And Matt, Franmil Reyes came back after paternity leave, and swing didn't miss a beat, which is a good thing because that's a guy when he's locked in, this offense is much better than when he's struggling to pick up the ball and hit it.
Man, he hit the ball to all fields last night. It was great to see. And you're right, he had that bad at bat where he strikes out, and then boom, Eddie Rosario comes up and, like he says, kind of bails him out with that 3-run home run. Eddie took his sweet time running around the bases, didn't he? That was kind of fun. But man, this lineup is just so much longer and so much better when Rosario and Josh Naylor are hitting. And 3, 4, 5, that R factor with Ramirez, Reyes, and Rosario can be really, really daunting for pitchers. Jose's been unbelievable, but those guys are going to have to carry this thing for a little while until they get Cesar Hernandez going. Still haven't kind of figured out that 2 spot yet. We didn't even mention Daniel Johnson getting that opportunity, and that was kind of a failure for 2 games. But 3, 4, 5, and 6, when Naylor's hitting, the lineup can be really, really solid. They just have got to figure out the top and bottom for sure.
Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk about Sam Hentges getting his first major league start. We'll also talk a little bit about rotation for the Indians. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Indians baseball with Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast. And Matt, Sam Hentges, 24-year-old left-hander, taking the spot in the rotation, vacated by Logan Allen, who was sent down. Sam, 1-0, a 4.76 ERA in relief this year, 5 2/3 innings. Big problem has been 3 home runs. What do you want to see from Hentges here? What is the key?
Well, first of all, he throws very, very hard from the left side. He's, obviously a big guy that with the velocity. What I want to see is, like you said, him keeping the baseball in the ballpark. He may give up a home run or two tonight, but it's got to be solos. It can't be, it can't be 3-run shots. I like what I've seen so far. There's a reason why they didn't stretch Quantrill back out or utilize him or even go to one of their guys down in the minors, Eli Morgan or any of the guys like that. I think they think that Hentges can be that guy, that can get into this rotation and provide some length. He throws really hard, 96, 97, breaking ball's pretty good. And when he came into that game a couple weeks ago against the Yankees, and it's like, geez, you're going to let this guy in his second big league game with a 1-run lead in relief pitch against New York in a game they had to have on that Sunday, and he did well. So we'll see how he does tonight. Remember, Karinchak, Clase, you have to figure, and Brian Shaw are all not going to pitch tonight. So Hentges is going to have to give him some length, hopefully, and some other guys in that bullpen will have to step up and pitch tonight, whether it's Nick Sandlin, Nick Whitgren, or somebody like that.
And again, Hentges just 24 years old. When we look at this rotation, Bieber has been everything you would want Shane Bieber to be. Logan Allen sent back to AAA. So now Tristan McKenzie's still kind of trying to fight through some issues as well. They got to get those 4 and 5 spots figured out. They're, as I mentioned, 2 games out of first place with as much as this offense has struggled tells you just how good this pitching has been.
Well, to be honest, just how good the bullpen has been. When you look at the starting pitching, like you said, Dave, the 4 and 5 guys have not done all that well. And then Zach Plesac had a couple of hiccup starts in between what has now been 2 pretty good starts and a great start at the beginning of the year against the unnamed team in Detroit. So they need, like you said, McKenzie, and the way they kind of have the rotation now set is, McKenzie will pitch, but then Plesac's after him, and then Savali. At one point, they had McKenzie and Allen back to back, and those guys were struggling, and so you're blowing out your bullpen back to back days. I like what I see from Tristan McKenzie with the swings and misses. It's just a matter of him kind of settling down, and after one walk, make it one walk, and then get back to throwing strikes. It's the accumulation of the walks. He's a young kid. He's 23. That really come back to bite him. But when his stuff's in the zone, nobody's touching it. We'll see what about Hentges. Savali didn't have his best stuff last night, yet still battled through it. And then, like you mentioned, tomorrow night, Shane Bieber is going to pitch. And what can you say about him? He's unbelievable. He's absolutely amazing. And, there's more to come, too, when it comes to Columbus. And if they get Logan Allen figured out, Eli Morgan, and some of these other guys down in the minor leagues, a few are injured right now. There's good depth there, and that's a good problem to have. And the bullpen's been unbelievable. Who would have thought Brian Shaw would be this good this early in the year?
The other thing is they're all young. The guys that we're talking about, everybody in the rotation, 26 or younger. Back end, Karinchak and Clase are young. So they're only going to get better.
Yeah. No, agreed. I can't believe how good James Karinchak is. And I know last night it was inevitable he was going to give up a hit or two, and Hunter Dozier always seems to be a tribe killer, feasted on a fastball down the middle. But in an 8-3 game or 8-4 game at the time, that didn't really prove to hurt them too badly. He's been unbelievable, that back end. Maybe Devin Williams and Josh Hader in Milwaukee are a better 1-2 punch, but name another one. You can't. Karinchak, Clase at the end of games has been phenomenal.
Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast, as always. Appreciate the time and talking Indians baseball with you. Thanks very much, Matt.
All right, Dave. Great to see you as always.
All right, have a good one. Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast. We're all out of time on this edition of Sports4CLE. Remember to join us again tomorrow. Ellis Williams and Stephen Means, scheduled guest. We will see you again right here at 4 o'clock on Sports4CLE. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.